Welcome back. Welcome back. We are going to look at pieces of lab equipment that you will commonly use in chemistry today. It's kind of a cute little chessboard. Anyway, my husband's into chess. Some of you know that. One thing just to remember is get out of the building before you try and get a viral video. Be safe. Quick re-mention, the science building, we're in SC4. Our new exit and fire drill spot is out in the cars along the fence line between the district attorney's office and campus. And again, we'll be practicing that when we're on campus. Safety goggles should be worn anytime you're using chemicals or glass. They are vented to help prevent some fogging. Some people still experience that a little bit. Ours actually have little plastic caps on them, as I showed you the other day, but they are super critical to your safety. They have to be worn on your face. They do have to touch your cheeks. That's to prevent any splash from below getting in there, and they do have to cover above your eyes, cover over your eyebrows. So it's not the most fun, but it's a heck of a lot better than having your eyes damaged. And even doggies can wear them. All right, I mentioned booties, and I didn't show them to every class. Booties are just these clean room shoe covers that are worn. Medical doctors wear them. Of course, they wear different shoes in surgery than they would on the street. But some of you know, like for playing basketball, you have to keep your basketball shoes just for the court, not walk on the street, for example. If you don't have closed-toed shoes on the day of lab, I'm going to make you purchase one of those for $1. The pair of booties and the baggie, you'll label them, put them in the drawer next to your lab station, and you can reuse them. This is a beaker. It has a little beak on it. That's how I can remember it, like a bird. The numbers stamped on here aren't exact measurements. They're close. This is actually a 250 milliliter beaker. Even though the number here only goes to 200, you can obviously see there's more room to put more stuff in it. The way we measure volumes precisely are with graduated cylinders. They have gradations or marks on them to help us measure accurately, and we'll talk about that in gory detail. These are beaker tongs. They have rubber coating on them. They're for picking up glass beakers securely, and they are not to be used in flames. This one's been melted a little bit, you can see, but these are a way to remove a glass heated beaker without burning yourself. There's two types of flasks. This is an Erlenmeyer flask. In general, flasks have kind of necks on them. They have a bigger volume at the bottom and a narrow top. That's to help prevent splattering. Erlenmeyer flasks are these kind of triangular based ones. Florence flasks have a round bottom on them. We don't usually use those in our class. There's a flat surface at the base. Some of these flasks actually are round bottom, and that's to help prevent cracking when heating. This little edge down here actually makes it more susceptible to break. There's also something called volumetric flasks. I'll try and show you one in class. These have very long necks, and the beauty of these flasks, they're stamped with the volume that they hold up to some line that's etched on the neck. So you can see this one's up high, this one's a little lower. What happens is when you're trying to mix up solutions, you don't want to try and take a lot of time to get exact volumes into the flask for a dilution. So these make it easy. You put the solid in, you put your water or whatever your solvent is in, and then fill it to the lime, and you know you've got exactly the volume that's on the flask. This is one type of burner. This is actually a Bunsen burner. We'll talk more about that also when we get together in class. It has a little collar. It doesn't show up very well in this video, for adjusting air flow. We also have another type of burner called a Tyrrell burner, but we'll talk more about that later. This is a striker. If you've done any welding, you've used a striker before. There's a little flint that ties in on one end, and then you squeeze this together here and it makes a spark. Believe it or not, the flints cost like $2 a piece, so we don't want to use them as toys. People, when they're first getting used to them, like to spark, but yeah, please don't do that. This is a ring stand sitting on a floor. These are iron rings. There's different sizes. You'll have 2 different sizes in your station drawer. This is something called a wire gauze. It's literally woven wire, and then in the middle is a ceramic. It used to be asbestos, but now it's ceramic pad to help distribute the heating. This is called a utility clamp. Most of ours have rubber on these ends. There's a wing nut here to tighten this piece. It can actually pivot. There's another wing nut here that can make it pivot, and then this is for attaching it to the ring stand. Test tubes. I'm sure everybody knows what a test tube is. We mostly use the 100 and 150 milliliter tubes, not this big gigantic one or these little tiny ones that are not very practical. So here's a setup with a skewed off-center Bunsen burner, wire gauze on top of a ring clamp. You can see the rubber coating here with a test tube in a beaker, and then the Bunsen burner below it. This is a test tube holder, so you would actually squeeze this and the test tube would go in between the jaws here. This is a test tube rack. Okay, so we have to make the distinction between these two because we use both of them. Ours are actually, I should have taken a new picture, ours are actually little blocks of wood that have holes drilled into them by the chemistry teacher before I got the position. These little pegs on most traditional test tube racks are for inverting the tubes and drying them. Unfortunately, our drawers aren't deep enough to hold those with test tubes in them, so the other teacher made blocks of wood that you could leave the test tubes in. Different kinds of brushes. You'll have 3 different sizes. You'll have a test tube brush, a little skinny one. You'll have a little bit larger, medium-sized one, and then a bigger beaker brush. Rubber stoppers are kind of like rubber corks. Some of them have holes in them, some of them don't. It depends on what you're doing. Obviously, they're to help you close off the neck of a flask or a test tube. You never want to heat anything with a stopper in it because then it becomes a projectile. As the gas expands, it shoots it out. These are called spot plates or well trays. They're different styles. We have solid white ones, there's clear ones. These little sticks on the edge can be broken off to use as mixing sticks. We'll usually use toothpicks. These are the 3 types of spatulas that we use in here. Most of the time we'll be using this one. It has a patented name of a scoopula. So it's pointy on one end so you can break up congealed stuff. And then this is kind of like a spoon. It's got a curved kind of trough to it. Most of the chemicals in here will be relatively safe, but there are some things you should never be touching with your hands. I will let you know, and you will use a spatula. This is not the best picture. This is a triangular file. It has 3 faces to it. This is one, there's one on the back, and it's resting on one. And just like the name implies, you use it to file stuff. Watch glasses look like giant contact lenses. They can be used to transport materials. You can do reactions on them. And you can also use them as covers on top of beakers when reactions are going on. Glass plates used to be used a lot more. Glass is very non-reactive. Most of the time we'll be using our watch glasses or our well plates. This is a glass stir rod. Obviously you need that to stir things. It's also a device you can pour liquids down a stir rod and it'll be less likely to splash. Medicine dropper, or we'll use these some. We have little bottles that have the little bulbs on the end. Pipettes we don't use in here. These have gradations on them as well. These are very important in a lot of lab situations, but not ours. You would call these tweezers. Fancy name is forceps. A funnel is just what you're familiar with. We have glass ones, we have plastic ones. We'll do one activity filtering a substance with a funnel. This is the wash bottle. There's different styles. They're filled with distilled water. You squeeze on them. The air pressure pushes on the liquid and pushes it up and out. We will occasionally need to use weighing boats. There's all different styles. In chemistry lab at college, you'll probably use weighing papers that are waxed on one side and plain paper on the other. Sometimes the chemicals will react with the pans on our electronic balances. We don't want that to happen, or you have to transport things a distance. And so we have plastic weighing boats for some chemicals. Mortar and pestle, that's one of those things that the alchemists made originally. Again, probably some of you have seen these already. It's for grinding stuff up. Evaporating dish, we'll use that one time this year. It's also ceramic. Let me go back to the mortar and pestle. All these white, glossy looking things are real high quality porcelain, and they're coated so they're not porous. And yeah, we'll heat stuff in here, and again, it has kind of like a little beak so you can pour. Another item that we use is something called a crucible. You may have read the crucible in English, or you may be going to. It's for heating things to very high temperatures. They come with lids, and we'll be doing a lab with this as well. Crucible and cover. This is a pipe stem triangle. This is porcelain so that the metal doesn't melt, but it's not glazed, it's not shiny. And so you would put the crucible, you would rest the crucible in this triangular space to heat it over a burner. Crucible tongs are notched, kind of. They have a little curvature. This end is kind of got a little pointy end, so you can grab the lid of the crucible, the little top of the hat of the crucible. You can grab a hold of it with this side, and then you turn them over, and you can pick up the crucible itself with this roundy part. Don't use it on beakers. There's no rubber coating. Beakers will slip through, and they're not really big enough. Litmus paper we use several times. Write this down. Red litmus paper is used to identify bases. Oh, that doesn't show up very well. They will turn blue. And the blue litmus paper is put into solutions to identify acids if they turn red. If they stay the same color, then if it's red, it's an acid. If it's blue, it's a base. They actually look more pink and purple to my eyeballs, but when they get moist, they will, great word, moist. When they get wet, they will change color if the pH changes, and we'll talk more about acids and bases and pH later. This is something called a double burette or a butterfly clamp. This is kind of spring steel, and we actually have this type that's a clamp, the much more expensive type. And so for those long pipettes, if we get to doing titrations this year, will be filled with an acid and a base, and we'll talk about that more later, but they are used to suspend pipettes. Again, your lab stations will have 2 drawers. The unlabeled one is for metals, and the labeled one is for glass and plastic, as it says. There's a schematic, a little drawing about what's supposed to be in the drawers. We'll go over that. A nice, neat, tidy drawer looks like this for your metal materials, and then nice, neat, tidy glass drawer looks like this. You'll actually have 6 different beakers. You'll have 2 graduated cylinders, etc. And we'll get them all organized. They're kind of a mess because we left them a wreck in March. Again, one of the drawers will be space for your clean goggles, and then another drawer will be a space to put booties if you have them. I like the room to stay neat and tidy. I like the towels to get hung onto one of the valves on the risers neatly. We now have yellow towels instead of these white ones, but yeah, that's to conserve our paper towels. And this is goofy, so we're not going to do that. So, end of story. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.